Hi folks, John Dunn here at Immortals Inc., RPG freelancer and publisher behind Melior Via. I'm here with Mikey.
What is going on, everybody? I'm here today with John, and what are we going to talk about today, John?
Well, Mikey, big board game guy?
You know, it just depends. You kind of know my style now, and you know that I'm very generic. So, Candyland, yes.
All right, so there is a board game that was originally published by Games Workshop and that they've licensed out to a number of different companies over the year called Talisman. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yes, of course. And I actually would think, as much as I've heard it, I would consider it a classic.
I mean, yeah, for what it does, it definitely is. It's one of the kind of definitive, iconic even, RPG-ish board games. So Hero Quest is the new hotness that was just re-released. But Talisman, I think, is going through different publishers at the moment. I'm not sure if there's a version in print right now, but Talisman is the Magical Quest board game. Like I said, it's created by Games Workshop. In some of the editions, they've worked in a lot of their iconography, a lot of their characters from Warhammer Fantasy and from Warhammer 40k, depending on the edition and depending on the expansion. There have been at least 5 editions of the game, I think, and dozens of expansions. And really, I think it's kind of, that gateway drug to role-playing because, yeah, there's a board, yeah, you're pushing pieces around on the board, but you've got a character that you're going to be portraying as you play, and that character is going to develop over the course of the game. Normally, in a Talisman game session, your character's development is only going to happen over those, 3-4 hours that you play the game, maybe even only 2 hours, depending on how it goes. If you want to have a more role-playing experience where your character can develop over weeks and months and years, and you want it to take place in that kind of Talisman fantasy setting, then have we got the game for you?
Oh, we do. What is it?
So it is the Talisman Adventures fantasy role-playing game published by Pegasus Spiele under license from Games Workshop. So this is an official Warhammer licensed product from them, though I don't think the word Warhammer pops up all that often inside.
Have you ever played this before?
I have a little bit, yeah.
How do you personally enjoy it?
Well, I think that the Talisman board game is a very niche game, and I think this does a fantastic job of diving into that very specific niche and expanding it out to kind of bridge that gap between a board game RPG that you're playing for one night and an RPG that you're going to keep playing for an extended campaign.
Well said.
I did say the board game has really strong RPG elements, and each of those playthroughs of the board game is kind of like a miniature compressed version of a game campaign. This draws really heavily on that. So the world setting is the first part of the book, and it dives into all the different spaces on the board and makes each of those into locations that can become key to your adventures. When they put this together, there's a map that they give you inside of here. So when you undo your shrink wrap, there's a map of the peninsula where Talisman happens. And you can see it kind of mimics that board. So you've got your outer area and then your inner ring and then the center where you could have those iconic interactions. The other thing that they kind of tuck into the book is some tokens that you're going to need for gameplay. They just, in the cardboard there, they'll punch right out. When I started reading through this, one of the first things that really confused me was they talked about book 1 and book 2, because book 1 is the player's part and book 2 is the game master's part. Yeah, that's just a split. If you look at the pages here, you can see there's a red part and a blue part. Not sure if that's showing up real clearly on the camera, but the first half of the book is the player's guide. The second half is the GM guide.
I actually like that a lot. I haven't actually seen many books we reviewed that have done that.
There's a few, and some books will even do different chapter markings down the pages. So when you look at that full bleed and you go, hey, I need the green section, you can just find the green section and flip right to it.
Yeah, I like
It's a clever way of doing things. I think it really takes advantage of the fact you're working with a solid book.
Yeah, and I feel like those are the things that you would forget to even look at until later on. You know what I mean? Like you notice it. Unless,
Sure.
If you're like me, at least.
In terms of game mechanics, this is a 3d6 system where you're going to roll 3 dice One of those dice needs to be a different color, and that different color is going to have ramifications for you. If you're familiar with Fantasy Age or Modern Age, the dice mechanic is actually very similar between Talisman Adventures and that system. Beyond the dice mechanic, the games are very different, so I don't want you to think that, oh, they're compatible. No, they're very different games, but that dice mechanic works in a very similar way. In terms of the physical product, this is, I think, about 250-ish pages. Let me grab that number for you real quick. Actually, a little higher, about 280 pages, and it is a $50 hardback. I think there are a couple of copies of the limited edition version of this on the shelf as well. Can't speak to what the price is on that, but they do have a different cover. Character creation is very fast. Not as fast as in the board game where you're just picking up a card, but it's still pretty quick. You pick an ancestry, a class, an alignment. Your attributes are mostly predetermined based on those things. You tweak a little bit, and then you add a couple of skills, some focuses, and equipment to finalize your character. In terms of ancestry, characters can be dwarves, elves, ghouls, humans, laywalkers, sprites, and trolls. In terms of classes, you have assassin, druid, minstrel, priest, prophet, scout, sorcerer, thief, warrior, and wizard. These really are all just iconic ones that have been pulled right from the board game and from the different expansions. Character advancement can very realistically happen during gameplay. Much like when you're playing the board game, your character can have encounters that cause your character to become more powerful. That works within this context as well. And when you do advance, your character picks up special abilities.
What kind of special abilities are we talking here?
They're usually not going to be game breaking, but they're things that might give you like an edge in combat or an edge in using a particular skill. Say becoming sneakier when you're trying to work in certain environments, or dealing more damage with particular types of weapons, or maybe having your spell become more effective.
As long as it's not as broken as the Mario Party board game, we're good.
Don't think you're going to run into that, no. In terms of alignments, characters are good, neutral, and evil. Again, attributes are mostly preassigned based on your species and class choice, or rather ancestry and class choice. There is a whole selection of spells in here, including my absolute favorite from my preferred version of the board game, and that is the Toadify spell, where you get to turn somebody into a toad.
Seems legit. Toadify.
Toadify, yes.
Get toadified.
Totally toadified, yes.
Totally toadified.
And then the book does close out with a sample adventure and some pre-generated characters. In addition, all the maps for that sample adventure and the character sheets, which are reproduced here, are available as free downloads from DriveThruRPG. You can just hop on there, grab the PDF of that, and print it out so you're not trying to cut up your book or any of that. And those maps are, conveniently sized for just laying down and using with some miniatures. I think they'd recommend that you use Games Workshop miniatures because, hey, Games Workshop product. But I'm pretty sure nobody's going to knock down your door and say, hey, you can't use, your Hero Quest ones. There is a nice little shiny bookmark in here so that you'll remember where your pages are. The artwork is all full color. I believe it's all original to this product. I didn't see anything that I recognized as having been reprinted from other GW or Talisman materials. I think this is a really solid game if you want to help somebody who's really into the Talisman board game bridge that gap and get into roleplay without possibly having the same level of complexity that they might get from Dungeons & Dragons or some other games. We do have copies on the shelf here at Immortals Inc. and available through the website at immortalsinc.com.
Immortalsinc.com. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Till next time, folks, good gaming.
Later, guys.
She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining